Hi, my name is Louise Larson. I run August Consulting, College Admission Solution. I help families on the road to college, and this is my webinar for July of 2024. And before I jump into this, I'm going to confirm that I am recording because the dirty little secret is that last month I recorded my webinar and did not record it, so I had to do it again. So hopefully that is a mistake I don't make twice. So I always start off with news and notes and what is going on in the college admissions world. And this month, when I finish that up, I'm going to talk about writing the college personal statement, which I'm deep in the middle of with my students, and it's on my mind. And there's a lot of things that I think are worth sharing about it. So I'll start with news and notes, just what's going on, and then I'll jump into how to approach writing. So I heard this from a college admissions person, and it talked about the activities that you do. And I thought this was a really great way to think about activities, because they said it doesn't matter what the activity is. It matters the commitment, the integrity, and the skill development that has occurred from this. How have you developed into who you are? And it helps them to potentially envision you on their campus. So sometimes people ask, what should I be doing? What should I do? And it doesn't even matter what you do. It matters the commitment, the integrity, and the skills that you might develop from that. The other piece that I thought was worth mentioning in this is the letter of recommendation. There is essentially no letter of recommendation that gets you in or keeps you out of college. It is rarely a tipping point. It is a point of consistency. It confirms the application. It provides clarity, nuance, and a sense of who's coming to a sense of what type of student is coming to campus. So I thought those were nice ways to think about it and help alleviate stress. American University in Washington, D.C. and the University of Florida have both decided to offer early action admission plans this fall for the first time. Continue to be lots of closures and mergers, and I think we'll see more of that. I think that a lot of colleges got COVID money that helped keep them going, and we're going to continue to see closures and mergers. So if you find a hidden gem for your student, make sure that they're on solid financial footing. The Stanford has decided to implement the SAT for their 2026 class. So if you're applying to Stanford this year, they're still going to be offer test optional, but you have to have scores if you're the class of 2026. University of Tennessee has implemented an in-state admission, again, an in-state guarantee admission. And a lot of the Southern flagships have done this in the past couple of years, where they're offering a level of admission of a more guaranteed admission threshold to their in-state students, which makes it more selective for out-of-state students. So that made this year's out-of-state admit rate 23.7% for out-of-state students, which is, they're taking 1 out of 4 kids. It's pretty competitive. New York Times article, there was a great New York Times article, and everything that I share, I put on my August Consulting Facebook page. I put on my Two River College Admissions Facebook page. And this was a promise to grads with no promise. And it just just a beautiful essay on how this might, what it's like maybe if you're not the star, and how it often turns out to be okay. So that is on my website. I'm gonna try to consolidate my testing talk. Okay, I'm just gonna jump into it. So Auburn is going to be test flexible. I said Stanford is going to require scores. Auburn is test flexible. If you can be test optional if you have above a 3.6, okay, fine. The North Carolina publics are only going to be test optional for the class of 2026 if you have a GPA above a 2.8. If you have a GPA below a 2.8, you have to have test scores. And I share that to say that these testing policies are starting to get really confusing. So if that feels like, wait, what? You're not crazy. So I'm sharing that to say that the testing policies are getting very confusing. The College Board, in their great wisdom, is, I mean, they knew that these schools were requiring test scores. Dartmouth, I think, announced in February, and there's been a little bit of a domino effect, more schools requiring scores. If you're in California, you cannot get a seat for the August SAT. There are no seats available. And it is becoming more and more of an issue around the country. The ability to even get a seat is a problem. Now, it is also a problem in the Northeast because around the rest of the country, a lot of schools are in session by early August. So the guidance counselors there, the buildings are open. But the August SAT this year, I think it's the 28th of August. I might be wrong about that, but it's usually the end of August. Northeastern schools aren't open. The guidance department isn't ready to run these. And it's a little maddening that that we are where we are. And it makes me very frustrated because the College Board pays proctors like $100 for like a half a day to come in and proctor this. So there's not a big financial incentive for them to do it. The technology adds another layer of complexity. And when the colleges are insisting that the kids have scores, it almost makes me want to say, here's an idea. How about the colleges offer the SAT? Like, why doesn't the College Board and the colleges get together instead of counting on these high schools to do it? And so, the College Board, and I have some data on this because I wrote it down because it drives me crazy. Hang on. Oh, I think they had in excess of $120 million in profits in the past 2 years. John Bokenstedt is the director of admissions at Oregon State. And if you go to his website, and I post some of his stuff, he has just a whole lengthy thing on how the College Board makes so much money. And they're using public resources, public schools to do it. So the other thing that the College Board does is manages to somehow have schools pay them to stop school for the day in October and administer the PSAT. The PSAT is the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, the NUMSQUAT it's called. But the NUMSQUAT, when I went to high school, was $2,500, and it is still $2,500. So they bring, like, every high school in America comes to a stop for a day to administer a test that maybe gets some kids $2,500 once. Now, $2,500 is plenty of money. I'm not saying it isn't, but to stop American high schools for a day to deliver this test to maybe give a couple kids $2,500, I don't know. And the thing is, to qualify, people are like, but if you don't give them the test, they won't be able to say that they were National Merit Scholars. The way you become a National Merit Scholar is to have high scores. So if the school wants to know about your test performance, perhaps just your high scores would be adequate enough. If you don't have to be a National Merit Scholar necessarily to show that you have high scores, your high scores will show that you have high scores. So it's a little maddening to see that all these schools are starting to require tests and you can't test. The other piece of college admissions news is the FAFSA continues to be a debacle. And I'm not going to go into the history of what has happened since January because I've talked about it every month. But the latest bit, and this is just, I don't even know how to clearly communicate this, is that in order to fix the FAFSA, they have borrowed an executive from the College Board to help them fix it. Now, the College Board has their own financial needs calculator called the College Scholarship Service Profile. So it would almost be like Goldman Sachs lending JP Morgan somebody to come in and help them fix something. And then the Goldman Sachs guy comes back from JP Morgan with like all their information. And it's not just the FAFSA information, like it's students' information. So the fact that Jeremy Singer, who makes $1.7 million working for the College Board, is on loan to help fix the FAFSA, I mean, it's a clear conflict of interest. Families pay money to submit the College Board's financial calculator. So the College Board really doesn't have an interest in making the FAFSA better necessarily, because if maybe the whole thing will just roll onto the profile and they'll make more money. I don't know. But this was really the other piece of the equation around all this with the College Board and the SAT. The ACT, as I mentioned earlier in the spring, has taken private equity has bought into the ACT. So these are for profit businesses, and they're highly monetized, and yet there's not seats for students to take the test. So from where I sit, it's all very maddening, and there's really no accountability with the College Board. Who are you going to call at the College Board and say, I don't like this? They don't answer to anybody really. It's a duopoly, and what it does is it puts children kind of in the crosshairs of the whole thing. So anyway, is there anything else I want to say about that? So I mean, while we're talking about the FAFSA applications are down 16%. And these could be students that are permanently lost to higher education. They're permanently lost. And the ripple effect can be around the colleges themselves, colleges closing. Certain colleges are real economic lifeblood of their region. So that can be a problem. Students not getting degrees can create poverty when they don't have the resources to go out and get a job that can support them. It also creates a lack of professionals in the pipeline for teaching or nursing or engineering, or there's less people coming out of the college pipeline to go into the workforce. So it's a problem when the FAFSA doesn't come through, and they're already talking about that the FAFSA will be problematic next year. I'm like, great. I posted on my Facebook pages a piece from a financial aid college administrator, and he just said it broke me. I mean, he wrote it's anonymous. He didn't add his name or college, but he said it absolutely broke me. They were just in a no-win position. So, FAFSA, College Board testing, I don't know. I wish I had better news, but let's see. What else did I want to tell you? Oh, waitlist stuff. Lots of waitlist activity in the past couple of weeks. Harvard, Georgia Tech, Michigan, Chapel Hill, Wake Forest, Bucknell, all little bits of waitlist movement. In the same vein, University of Virginia announced on June 12th that their waitlist is closed, their class is full, they will not be going to the waitlist. So mixed bag with the waitlist this year. The other thing that I want to say in all of this is 33% of people in America have a college degree. So really, any college degree is sort of elite because not everybody gets to go to college. What else was I going to talk about? I want to talk a little bit more about testing. And these numbers are from Boston College, and not every school puts these numbers out, but it's kind of telling. If you have a freshman, sophomore, junior, you probably do want to put some effort into testing. And that is because Boston College admitted they got 40,477 applications. They accepted 7,651 students. That's 18.9%. Okay. 43% of the application pool applied with test scores. 57% applied test optional. 29% of the kids with test scores were admitted. 11% of the test optional kids were admitted. So when you start to say, oh, it's test optional, that's school by school, and it can mean different things in different places. The admit rate at Yale for test versus non-test takers was 2% of test optional kids were admitted, 6% with test scores were admitted. Colgate, 12% were admitted without test scores, 25%. So those admit rates, you know, I know testing is a bad business, but my advice to families is to put the effort that makes sense for you into it. Anything else? I think part of the reason schools are going back to test scores to requiring testing is because of grade inflation. When everybody has a 4.0, it's sort of hard to know, okay, who's going to be coming to my campus. So I think that's everything I wanted to say about just what's going on. Now I'm going to talk about writing. So I am knee deep in writing with my rising seniors. We are, for the most part, pretty much done with the Common App. We are writing. I've got kids starting to bring them in for landings. They're going out for editing in the next week, with the goal of trying to get everybody done by the middle of July so they can take a little break before we get into the August round of supplemental writing. So that's what is on my mind. And I thought I would talk a little bit about the college essay. And because a lot of families come to me with some ideas about what this essay should be. And I was like, this is not like any other writing you've done. This is not a history essay showing, 5 paragraphs proving your point. This is not even really super formal writing. And so when a lot of parents say, it should be, they have ideas that what it really should be, this magnum opus, and that's just not it. This is an opportunity to show something about you that is not already shown. And there's different spaces in the Common App, and the goal is to make each space show something different. If you're a high-end runner, that's going to be in there already. Probably not going to write about running. So here are a couple do's and don'ts to talk about. And this was actually from a quote from Jacob Brown, who's the head of admissions at Eckerd College in Florida, which is one of the colleges that changed lives. He said, you don't have to shoot for perfection, just tell your story. You should not be trauma dumping. This is not the place to be like taking giant creative risks. You really want to share your voice. This is not the place to use artificial intelligence. A lot of kids think, I know, I'll use AI and I'll get some great essay. When college admissions readers are reading over and over and over and over, they hear voice, they hear variety. And when they get an AI piece, they hear it. It's like a counterfeit bill. You or I might not know it, but people who deal in currency know. So there's no need. You should kind of think of it like your children's art. Your children's artwork is not, when they were little, is not stuff that goes into a museum. But boy, was it great. And I remember my friend years ago, she had drawn the family, and she was very big, the parents were very big, the siblings very little, and the cat was very big. And it was like, here's who's important to her, the parents and the cat. This is what she values. And while her art didn't end up in a museum, she really explained herself with this little bit of artwork as a preschooler. And, when you think about how delightful children's art is, your child's essay should sound like a teenager wrote it. A lot of parents get these essays and look at it and say, this is terrible. It sounds, like a kid wrote it. Well, they did. And, if you, I hear college admissions people say all the time, like, this sounds like a 45-year-old woman wrote it. They know. And the thing is, if your child, and a lot of parents think this should be really a very formal, serious piece of writing, and that if your child, if it sounds like it was written by somebody who could write for foreign affairs, the rest of the application better reflect that. If your child can write like Hemingway, the rest of the application is going to reflect that. They're going to have written writing awards. Their English teacher is going to say, oh my gosh, this is the best writer I've ever had. They're going to be editing the literary journal. I mean, the rest of the application is going to reflect that. If your child sounds, if your child doesn't sound serious and you're worried about that, that's okay, because they're not looking for a magnum opus of a person who can write for The Economist. They want to learn more about who is coming to their campus. The other thing to think about the writing is to think about your story, and what is it that, if you had a moment with an admissions director, that you would want to say. And here, by the way, here's one more thing about me I'd want you to know that isn't in there anywhere, because they're going to have your school profile. They're going to have your academic performance, rigor, and grades. They're going to have teachers' letters of recommendation. They're going to have your activities list. They're going to have a letter from your guidance counselor. What else do you want to tell them that isn't in there, that about you? What is another facet that you want to share? And that is why, if here's a couple of things you should not do. You should not recite your resume. They know that. You should not brag or boast. It's not necessary. You should not have to try and be something that you're not. There's no need. You do not have to think about, what do they want to hear? What they want to hear about you. So what would you like to tell them that about yourself? What would you want them to know about who's coming to their campus? Somebody shared with me a prep school. They kind of put out a guide of what to write about. And they listed all these things you should not write about. And the second to last one was your horse. And it was so funny, because it listed all the reasons you shouldn't write about your horse. And it's very hard for admissions people to understand the horse and rider bond. It's very hard to understand how much work goes into it. It sounds elitist. Most admissions people will have no experience with this. Like, there was so many reasons to not write about your horse. And the last thing that they listed that you should not write about is poetry. And all they said after that was, it would actually be better to write about your horse. So this is not the place to write a poem or to do some risky essay. It's not creative writing. It's literally just telling your story. And if you look, you can't see it back there. If you look at that framed piece back there, it says, what's your story? Because that's all you have to do. And, writing from the heart. And so when you get the finished product, hopefully they know something about you. It's important to not be negative. We all have negative things in our life, but this is not a place to kind of rant or complain. This is also, I just lost my train of thought. There was the other piece of the puzzle here is death. Not a great thing to write about, unless it is something that you have directly experienced in your family. I have seen communities shattered by the death of a young person in their community. And I'm not disqualifying that at all. This is probably not the place to write about that. Shoot, there was one more thing I don't want to be writing about. Lost my train of thought on that one too. If you have experienced in your family firsthand, a sibling or a parent that you've lost, that can be written about in a way that is not, that can work, and share your experience with that. Let's see, you don't want to repeat anything. Just want to see if there's anything else here that I want to. There was one last thing I wanted to talk about. I guess just not repeating yourself, not repeating what you've already said, not repeating what is already in there. If you are a star in one area, that's going to show up. You don't need to reiterate, by the way, this is what I do. So, if you are a parent of a rising senior, I know it's a lot of hard work. I recently posted on my augustconsulting.org page on my blog why college applications are the stuff of greatness. There's a really fun piece from Kelly Corrigan in there about why college applications themselves are, the achievement. There's so much to them. So that is what I'm deep in the middle of. And I think in August, what I want to do for my August topic is talk about younger high school students, and some of the things to be aware of as you go. I've had some juniors and seniors come to me, and their parents have said, boy, if I had known this, I wouldn't have done that in 8th or 9th grade. So I think in August, I'm going to focus on what younger parents of younger high school students, some things to think about to make good decisions. So when you go to, Potter College, you are where you want to be. So I think that's everything. I know it's always a little scattered. There's always more news coming, and I always say I'm going to do it, and then I'm like, oh wait, there's more thing. Oh wait, there's one more thing. So at some point I just have to do it. So anyway, any questions, feel free to reach out, and I'll be back in August.